Thanks, Marshall. Welcome everyone to today's Q&A. My name is Gary Gurr. I'll be your host, and Paul Higgins will be driving documentation for us today. No really big announcements other than we're still going on with Fall 1. Deadline is still December 16th. The amendment window then starts up and runs through January 20th. You only have to have LEA approval by December 16th. SELPs don't have to approve until the final January 20th deadline. And Paul's bringing up the calendar now. So all that's listed there. And then Fall 2 is listed there as well. That's running as well. The deadline for that is February 24th. And there is no amendment window for Fall 2. We do have, with the CDDs and DDs and all that coming on and being turned off and such, there's issues that seem to be cropping up with different ones. So do keep an eye on the known issues list. We're updating that several times a week with new issues. I think I'll just wait for the questions before we go into anything else on that. That's all I really had to say today. Martha, Angela, did you have anything? Angela usually wants to talk about the defects and such.
Yeah, I'm neck deep into the defects.
You've been quiet. I haven't even heard from you for the last couple of days, it seems like.
Head down. It's been busy on the service desk. So, Paul, we are up to date on the known issues. If you happen to have CalPads open, should be as of, that looks right, around 10 a.m. this morning. So that has the fixes that went in this morning. What's missing, I just hot off the presses have one. There's a fix available on there, Paul, for mid, if you search for mids.
That's the one?
No, keep going. Fix available, it should say. Oh, there it is. Yeah, that one. That is in the system. We didn't mark it as fix implemented because it actually broke something else. And so I just logged a new bug, so it's not on the known issues just yet. It'll be on the next revision of it, where both the resolve mid not on report and resolving from just the mid screen itself are not working in some scenarios. So the symptoms are when you're trying to merge two SSIDs from the resolve mid not on report and you click validate, it just hangs. And then if you try to go find that mid on the mid results screen, when you click open to get to the area where you can merge them, you get an error occurred message. And I was just chatting with the developer. He said it has something to do with if one of the SSIDs only has one record and it's an N470 exit, it's causing that. So he's working on a fix for that. Hopefully we don't have to wait till next Tuesday, but I can't guarantee how quickly they're going to turn that around. So I just wanted people to be aware that there are some issues still and that the anomalies are not 100% working correctly.
Great. Thanks, Angela. Martha, Paula, Joe, did you have anything to add? If not, we'll get started with the questions. All right. Move my computer over here. First question is from Richard. Q1, unable to download all the SRPRG records for date, rate, or academic year. I've tried both the academic year and the date ranges with and without the active checked, and some student records will not come out of the ODS extract. The ticket is submitted, still waiting for support. Also, cache records seem to be causing the SPRG 254 overlap errors. When will this be resolved? That's a good question. I'm hoping that will be resolved sooner than later because it's an annoying error. It's the one that we get a lot of tickets on where you try to upload a record, it doesn't work. But if you wait a day and upload that same record, it goes through and doesn't give you any errors. So I'm not exactly sure if we know what's causing that yet. With some kind of process that's not finishing, I think. As far as the ODS extracts, yeah, we might want to work on a ticket on that ticket for that because I'm not sure. I wasn't aware that there was any issue with the ODS extracts for the SPRG files.
Yeah, it looks like he's been working with Walt. So Richard, I'm going to grab that ticket from Walter and see if I can dig into that one.
Okay, it didn't take long for this one to pop up, but this has been kind of a hot topic. The next question, Q1 from Joanne. When will the SBRG 0550F1 known issue 610 be resolved? It is the last non-special ed fall 1 error our district has. So there's a couple different flavors of this, and in some cases, and I actually had one that was a legitimate, the error was actually legitimate, but in a lot of cases, there's two different things going on. One, if the EL, and if your SOLA status is out of sequence for whatever reason, you have an EL record, so the student was EL on census day, but there's another record like an EO or an IFEP or something that somehow that got out of sequence, so it looks like that is actually 6414, the one that was just logged today. So that one will probably be resolved before the 6410, which is where you have an EL, a student that is no longer EL, but you have open lip records from years ago. So if you have that, there's a workaround that you should probably want to do, because we don't know how soon the 6410 will be resolved. The workaround would be, and especially if you only have one, is just to go in and end date the lip record. And then once that's end dated, then that 550 F1 should be resolved with the next revision. And there's a lot of politics going on around that, so that's why we're saying it might not be fixed that fast. It might be better just to go ahead and do the workaround on the older lip records if they don't have an end date. Martha, does that sound good enough? I don't know if we lost Martha or not. Next question is from Colleen. Q1, if a student who is both SPED and EL is taking the 9231 SPED course, does the teacher of record need to have an EL authorization in addition to the appropriate SPED credential?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Nate. Question 1 from Sandra. A student is a no-show at the start of the school year. They were enrolled in our district last year. They are not in CALPADS attending another school. Which exit code is used, the no-show or E400? Let's see.
Unlikely E400, right? Because that's only for certain age groups.
Right. I would say the no-show if they're. Well, actually, wait. Okay, so as soon as no-show, right. Yeah, the no-show, or don't even put a record in for this year.
Or did you?
No,
that isn't.
Yeah, if they were expected to return and they weren't matriculating, so they were your student last year, you expected them to return and they didn't, you have to SARB them and find out what happened. That's, I think, Flash 134.
Yeah, I agree, Martha. Those are the kids who otherwise kind of fall between the cracks.
Yep.
What flash number, Martha?
134, but it's no longer on CDE's website. This has come up before that I think we've sent it to somebody that has asked for it.
Well, you can always Google CalPADS Flash 134. The link.
Oh,
It's not
and you
on
said
website.
that the last time too.
Yeah,
That's right. I remember that.
Although when I Googled it, I still couldn't get it to open. I don't know what I was doing wrong.
Yeah, we need to update.
I keep local copies as well, so I have 134 up on the screen.
But Martha, shouldn't it just be an FAQ at least until we get other documentation?
It should, yeah.
So maybe we should flag that for ourselves to do.
It's good, Paula. I'd gladly work with you on that.
Okay. Denise, question 1, when will the CDD be in the error report?
Well, we thought we were going to get an extract on Tuesday, but that didn't happen. So looks like the following Tuesday, next Tuesday. So I think they're also working on the error report itself to have the CDDs, but also a new extract for you.
Okay, question 1 from Stella. Can you clarify for dual immersion schools, Each student will have a LIP 301 dual language immersion program record sent to CALPADS. Do the students who are classified as EL at a dual immersion school also need a LIP 305 record? Anyone know that off the top of your head?
I don't. They can have multiple lips.
They can have multiple lips, yeah.
I mean, it's a program, so we will double check that, but as long as they have a LIP program. The only thing that we're checking on is if they're an EL, that if they're no longer an EL, they're not in certain LIP programs. But we're not checking to see that an EL has a certain LIP program. Does that make sense?
Okay. Thank you.
But
Question one.
We'll just double check that, but I'm pretty sure you don't need to be in both.
Oh, okay. Question one from Rebecca. Is this SPRG 550F1 known issue fixed? There was actually a different one that was fixed, and that was similar to the 6410. Oh, you wrote it here, 6401. That one is supposed to be fixed, yes. That was a little bit different because that was crossing LEAs. In the case with the 6410, it's the same LEA, has an older LIP record. But the 6401 is fixed. Question one from Becky. If one child in a household is on direct cert list, do the other siblings qualify for free or reduced lunch? It's my understanding, yes.
Right, Paula?
Right.
Okay. Question one from Wendy. When is the window to start calling data for post-secondary CTE survey?
I just posted the answer in the chat, Gary. It's on page
thanks.
116 of the data guide. It says, for CTE completers, LEAs should survey students in the second quarter following the end of the school year, which will be sometime during the following December and January.
Perfect.
So it's usually like 6 months, right, after they graduate?
Right, for CTE it's 6 months. For SPED it's a year.
Right.
Question one from Maria. Can anyone tell me by when we need to have all of our ELs RFEP'd if they qualify?
I mean, it's kind of a local decision. There was a flash that kind of talked about the consequences of when you do it. If you RFEP them before census day or after census day, but I know that the program office thinks best practices is to try to RFEP a student at the end of a school year so that they can start the next school year, with the new status. But I know that's kind of difficult sometimes because you don't get your LPAC scores back in enough time for them to assess whether or not the student ought to be RFEP'd. But it's really a local decision. There's no, required time.
But I would add this, Paula, that something to think about, that if they are still EL on census day and they should have been RFEP'd, then you're misreporting them. So if your concern is you want to have your statuses up to date, then you would want to do all of your RFEPs definitely before census day so that those kids can be identified as RFEP on census instead of as an EL.
Yeah, no, that's from a programmatic standpoint, it's best for the student to start the new year with the new status so they can be appropriately placed and so forth. But I think there was a flash that talked about the consequence, what happens, where the kid will show up if they're
EL. Is that like 219? Because I think we had to make a correction to 219. Scroll to 219. Because
there's, not only is it the UPC, counting on census day for funding purposes, but depending on when you RFEP the student, they'll be counted as RFEP'd either in whatever, in the prior year or the current year. If you want the student to count as EL for accountability purposes, you would, there's just a lot of different impacts. So really, I think the main thing is what's best for the student, and the best thing for the student is to try to RFP them, at the end of the school year, so that.
Yeah, that's what it kind of says, prior to the end of the school year right there.
And part of that is to get ownership, that your LEA wants to get credit for having reclassified a student. And if they leave you and then you didn't get them reclassified, another LEA is going to be able to do that. And then you lose that ability to count them as somebody that you RFP'd.
Right. We just know from a practical standpoint, especially the last couple of years with all the testing issues, that sometimes it's hard to accomplish that. But that's from a best practices standpoint, that's, what LEA should be striving for. At least that's what our program office advocates.
All right. Next question from Zara. My school name is missing in the LA Contact Lookup list. I think we're trying to get those all updated.
Right, and we did have a big batch of fixes going in, although we still are still migrating some data over there. But you do need to clear your cache for that to get reflected. I had to do mine a couple times this morning, Zara. So clear your cache a few times, and then I just verified that you are in there now.
Oh,
your browser cache, right?
Your browser cache, yeah, sorry.
Okay. Wendy, I see your question too. Come back to it. Eugenie, question 1. One of our LEA's lists of fatals jumped significantly in errors. They have 255 Cert 140s. I saw that there's an active defect for the Cert 140 in end of year 4, but does this apply to fall 1? So it just jumped up.
Sometimes we get rogue results.
Thinking. If it just happened today, wait for a new revision. Sometimes they go away. When you get a huge amount like that, especially if you look at the error and look up the students and it's like doesn't make any sense, it's like, no, it shouldn't be triggering. A lot of times, who knows what the cause is, but those will go away with the next revision.
In this case, the Cert 140, though, is they're missing a sped for a student has a SSRV. So if your sped folks have recently been updating their data, maybe something got out of sync, but waiting a day, maybe it'll all, get back in sync, that there'll be a sped with an SSRV and nothing is lost or orphaned. So you should also check with your special ed folks as to their activity, because that could have caused that as well.
Okay, Wendy, I see your Q3. Q1 from Beatrice. Do we know of any issues with TOMS? I have 6 students that have all the data on the SPED system, and we did all the requested uploads in CALPADS, listed on TOMS before doing the TOMS upload. And those students show that test is not assigned. Well, I haven't heard of any TOMS issues lately. I thought everything was going pretty good, but.
So in other words, they're not being identified to SPED in the TOMS.
That's what it sounds like, yeah.
So they can't do their accommodations?
Possibly. Yeah, I mean,
Possibly.
basically, if they think that all the data is in CalPads and somehow it's not going over, then I think we just need to troubleshoot that.
Yeah, when we get those tickets and we send them up to CDE usually, because they have access to a TOMS and can do some more detailed analysis.
So we'd need some SSIDs to go with that, Beatrice.
Question 1 from Charlene. We have a student tagged as homeless on October 7th, 2022. So he's not included in the report 1.17 and 1.18. Since the student is eligible for FRPM, is it okay that the FRPM and homeless program keep track of the student differently in fall 1? I would say yes, you're right. They're not going to be counted as homeless on the 1.17, 1.18 because of the date there. But if they are FRPM, then at the end column for LCFF, they would qualify for that. Question 1 from Catherine. I have a mid. Both SSIDs belong to us. I'm having trouble correcting this error. Those can be tricky. I had one yesterday that they couldn't correct it. We're trying and it was just timing out. It wasn't correcting, and they had end dates on both of them. They weren't. You have to make sure they're not overlapping. they were using 2 N470 exits. How I actually got it to work was I added another temporary enrollment record with a later date, not exited, and then it worked. So there's a lot of times you might be better off putting in a ticket and letting us look at it and see what's going on, or at least help you guide you in the right direction of how to resolve it. But there's a lot of little tricks and tips to get these mids resolved depending on what's going on with the 2 records. Question 1 from Faith. Can a course be dual enrollment and also be counted towards A and G requirements? In 2019, Brandy told me this was allowed, but want to confirm it if this is still the case. If they can't count for both, then a large percentage of our students will not meet UC CSU requirements.
Well, okay, so in order to be meeting A to G requirements, that is something where, it has to be approved in the course management portal that UC administers. So that's kind of like a separate issue. So you have to make sure it's approved in CMP. In terms of dual enrollment and I guess I don't understand what the question is exactly, because when you say you count for both, for CCI, whether or not the kid met UC, you tell us whether or not a student met UCCSU requirements, right? So that's one thing. And then we also look at kids who are dual enrolled, and that counts in the determination of the college career indicator, CCI. That's separate from if a kid met UCCSU requirements. I don't know if that makes.
I think some of the courses, isn't there a field saying or asking what UC requirement this course satisfies? Isn't that an attribute?
Yeah, but we don't.
Well, we collect it, and maybe that's where her question is coming from.
Yeah, so we only, in terms of the CCI, we only look at, you get credit in the CCI for dual enrollment, as well as for college credit, those courses, and the military and leadership courses, right? There is sometimes not a conflict, but a duplication in terms of those courses and CTE completion, but I don't think that's what they're asking here. So in other words, I guess I don't understand what the concern is.
Yeah, that last sentence that you have in there, Faith, about our students would not meet the UCCSU requirements. So there's quite a few things that determine whether a student meets UCCSU requirements. And that's a separate flag that you put on the SENR enrollment. So whether or not they take a course that satisfies the A through G, there's a counselor that determines whether or not they met those requirements.
Right, and we kind of take your word for it. It's just an indicator to us. We don't derive that in any manner. Yeah. So you tell us whether or not they met the UCCSU requirements. And the reason why we can't derive it is because it's not just a matter of taking certain courses that are in the course management portal. It also could be a kid could meet those requirements by passing a certain subject area exam. So that's why we really depend on schools to determine whether or not they met those requirements. And then you simply tell us. And that's separate from us figuring out the CCI in terms of, what courses the student completed. But I think the main thing on this one that sometimes gets schools confused is they need to really make sure that the courses that they think are UCCSU approved, that they in fact are in CMP, the portal that UC administers. And that's something that someone in your district knows about and should be checking.
Okay. Question from Mary Masters. LIP records, the workaround, what end date should be used? So you want to make sure the end date that you use is within your enrollment period. It has to be within an enrollment period for your LEA. And I would say you probably would want to use, so if they went from EL to RFEP, the end date would be possibly the date before the RFEP. Or that's
what I would say. The last day that they were EL.
Yeah.
And
But
that's
again-
usually because they got another status that follows.
I mean, yeah, that's fine. Although technically, you know, a lot of the lit programs are actual programs, right? And so usually they might end at the end of a school year, or if it's a newcomer program,
Sure.
you know, it's so, you know, just remembering that this is different from services.
Yep. I guess the key there is if when the program ends, if the student has left, you wouldn't be able to use that date. You'd have to use the date that's within your enrollment. But other than that, yeah, that's another option. At 3:09, Nate put in a note about, or a URL about Ballot EL authorizations for services. 3:11, Rebecca Aguilera put in the link to the Flash 134 that we always seem to pop up. And also Paul did. Okay. Question 1 from Jerry. Hi, Gary. Hi, Jerry. I recently noticed that for some of our students, their 181 and 182 free reduced record is getting closed automatically when we process mid-year grade change update using the E150. I think this is only supposed to happen with a T160 exit, so it appears to be an error. I didn't see anything in the known issues, so I wanted to put this on your radar. Thanks. Yeah, it's supposed to happen with an E155. I don't think it's supposed to happen with an E150. We would probably want to ticket and take a look at that.
Yep.
That's not good if it's we don't want to be closing them out before they're supposed to be. Key 1 from Serena. I put a ticket back in October 21st and was told the Cert 143 warning may be a new bug that hadn't been written up. Do not think for now the data is correct. Is this still the case as my numbers for it have increased?
Yeah, I would expect it to increase as you add new students, new sped students that enrolled after information day. That's what causes that error. I think Paul escalated it thinking, well, the student wasn't enrolled on information day. They shouldn't trigger that warning, but I didn't reply to you, Paul, but I think it's supposed to work that way because the sped plan was active on information day. So it's just kind of I don't know, maybe the wording of the error message should be more clear because it's used for both end of year and fall one. And in end of year, it is it is fatal. But in fall one, it's just a warning. So you can't ignore that. And in fact, you'll expect to see it for anybody that enrolls after October 5th and has an active sped plan.
And then it's fatal for end of year, but you don't have to worry because end of year isn't just about census day, it's for the whole year. So
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so you'll be good there. Question 1 from Rocio. Fall 2 question on staff assignment. What job classification code should we assign for a special ed coordinator? Are they considered a 10 administrator or the 137 code for non-classroom based job? Oh, and the 137 code for non-classroom based job. Are sped ed coordinators considered administrators?
The 6029 non-classroom based job code, special education case manager, non-instructional, can be used 10, 12. So it can be a teacher or an administrator. And it's specifically for the staff members that are case managers or not instructing students. It's new, so you might want to look at that.
Great. Thanks, Nate. Question 1 from Amy. When is the known issue 6385 going to be fixed? Can load the seed or subsequent course sections? When will the fall 2 window open to show errors? I'm not sure what that meant.
Paula, do you have an update on that? Do you know the reference table for seeds, if it's getting, if or when it's going to get updated?
It hasn't been. I thought that was.
Well, I'm making an assumption that that's where the problem lies, is that the reference table is not getting updated, but
It's supposed to get updated all the time, right?
Yeah,
Here,
I thought Randy said there was some problem.
I found the note. AMART is in discussion with CTC and Glenn, indicated he still hasn't heard back. So We're supposed to hear more.
We need to ping them again because that was
Yeah.
that's supposed to be happening like all the time.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then that's a problem if we haven't addressed it yet.
Yeah, I wrote that up in October. Still, it's been happening since before I wrote it up, and it's just not
James,
moving
would you have
along.
an email to forward on to ask them a status, or do you want me to just do a new one?
I will just update the ticket and I'll tag folks that need to be, so they'll get
Okay.
an email.
Okay, question one from Cedric. If a student changes from reduced NSLP status to free, should the newly created 181 program use the 182 record start date or the date the student went from R to R? I think you just use the new date.
Yeah, if it's a mid-year change or a change after the 182 is established, and then you find out that they're a 181, you close out the 182, put in the new 181 using the following calendar day. So that way there's continuity and you see the longitudinal progression through the system.
Thanks, Paul. Question one from Leilani. I know there is a known issue of direct cert students not counting as said on the 1.1, but I've also had students that have a free or reduced record because they're qualified by application and they're not counting as said. Is this also part of the known issue? I don't know if it's the known issue, but the 1.1 report is a little bit different. It's only counting FRPM students through census day, whereas the 1.17 and 1.18 count through October 31st. Question one from Joanne. How do you decide whether to use Education Service Code 3, Integrated ELD Instruction Only, or Education Service Code 4, Designated and Integrated ELD Instruction, but not Primary Language Instruction? Thanks for making me read that, Sue-Ann. How do we decide whether to use one or the other?
Yeah, I suppose you have to look at the definition.
And ask the
teacher is
instructional
teaching.
staff. Yeah. It's not a question that you could like determine. It seems like you need to ask the program staff based on the definitions of the two.
Okay. At 3:14 is where Angela posted that page 116 of the data guide for Wendy there. Question one from Carla. I have a ticket open because I'm getting an error, the 106, which we were just talking about. The seed doesn't exist. I checked with our credential analyst and we have the correct seed. Okay, so we discussed that and they're following up on it. Angela's gonna ping everybody involved. Question one from Stephanie. Can you have 2 capstone courses for one pathway?
I think you can, but they're only going to count the student once as a completer.
Yep.
I mean, that's a lot of hours if they're 2 different. I don't know how you do that. I think you have to go to the Ballot co-combo, where if you look up a pathway, you would see what the various capstone courses are for that pathway. So some only have 1 capstone, but there are some pathways that have multiple
few,
capstones.
Yeah. It's possible. Question one from Maggie. I apologize if you've already reviewed this. Would you be able to show how to access the CDD errors? Are we supposed to just pull the error report, or is it a quick access like the Cert? Normally, if it was working correctly, you would be able to pull the 1.0 Cert error report, and that would give you all your errors. But it's still in
It's
flux.
missing the CDDs.
Yes.
So Paul, can you show her that?
What
Where
LAA do
can
you want me to use?
I think just go into the report screen. Right? If you go to reports and snapshot, up at the very top,
Yeah,
says,
that's one.
And then it'll prompt you for what submission. That's how you would normally get the certification error report. But and you can do that right now. It just won't give you all of your errors because of the defect.
So we're hoping soon.
I just checked and the developer checked in his code. So that's great. It's going to be handed off to testing. And so it looks like it's on track for Tuesday.
Is that the one on
Great.
the export? Because there was an
The
actual
report.
defect.
The bug on the report that they're
Okay.
not showing.
Good.
We're all waiting for it.
Yes, we are.
Question 1 from Yesenia. ERD report working?
You tell us. I believe all the ERD fixes have gone in, but I have my doubts. Just these reports or the counts seem really low to me. Typically, we see a lot of ERDs. So if you happen to have one, let us know that you think should be showing, but it's not. Let us know so we can chase that down. But either everybody's data is pristine or there's some ERDs that aren't getting counted correctly.
Okay. There's some good comments in there, folks, if you're reading through the questions as we're going along. Next Q1 is from Larney. We are getting the error, the 550 error. Is this error going to prevent us from certifying fall 1? How do we resolve this error? Student was enrolled. So I'm not sure if you had already signed in when we talked about this earlier. There's a workaround depending on which flavor you have. If it's 6414, a known issue that we just logged today, hopefully we'll get that fixed very shortly. You'll have to wait for that to fix that. And that had to do with if the student is EL on census day, but for whatever reason, it's out of sequence with another status, it's giving you this error and you can't fix that. If it is an error where it's because the LIP program hasn't closed, but it's an old LIP program, like we had one today from 2010 that wasn't closed, that was causing the problem. If it's from your LA, just go ahead and the workaround is just close that LIP record, because we're not sure when that 6410 error is going to be refixed.
Gary, if I can add one thing, based on Larney's description, it sounds like maybe the LIP program has a start date that's before the EL starts, because your EL record doesn't start until 10/7. So make sure that that LIP record, if it's one of those that are specific to ELs, aligns with the EL start date.
Very good. Good point. Thanks, Alex. At 317, Paul put the link to the Flash 219. Question 1 from Brianna. I came in late, and I'm not sure if this has been brought up, but I'm hearing that the 1.17 enrollment counts are off. And is there a known or recently resolved issue that may be throwing the enrollment counts off? Didn't think we had do we have a bug? I don't think we had a bug on
No,
1.17.
but you were saying how 117 doesn't compare to the 1.1.
Right.
That we count in SLP differently.
Right. So if that's what you're hearing, they're being off, that's not an issue. That's just how it is, because the 1.1 uses census day and the 1.17 uses October 31st.
And also the 1.17, it's not including your kinder students that turn 5 after that February 2nd cutoff, where the 1.1 is. So that may be also why you're seeing discrepant numbers there.
But as far as we know, 1.17 has accurate counts.
Yes.
Until you tell us otherwise.
And we're running out of time, so hopefully that's not going to be the case. Q1 from Lily. Is there an update? Oh, okay, so another 550. So hopefully you've heard us discussing that. Lily. Okay. Q1 from Angelina. What is the IVR 0131 none on the Fall 2 course file? Will this go away or be renamed later?
You look it up. It is missing language of instruction code. So you're right. It shouldn't say none. That's a problem. But usually when you
error
drill
description.
Yeah, I've seen that here and there. So I don't know if they're still working on Fall 2 stuff.
You would think the input validations would be, because isn't that what an IVR 131 means? It's still an input validation.
So it should be on the error list too, down in the footer of CalPADS. If you searched on the CRSE tab for number 131, it should come up there.
Paul's trying to bring it up. Just there it is. I see the corner of it.
I'm sorry, it was IVR 131?
Yes.
And it's the
Missing a
same.
language instruction code there. That's it. So if the education service code is correctly populated in the submission, ensure the correct value for language of instruction is provided. Is one
So
of the,
I think we will revise it so it won't say none though, Angelina.
yes.
Send in a ticket. We'll get it logged.
Okay. Rebecca says you can go ahead and remove my LAA name from the LAA contact lookup. I'm okay with that. LOL.
Probably like
Okay.
me. She gets 8,000 emails a day.
Oh, geez. Question one from Cami. Wondering if anyone has downloaded the site for TSK Standards for a report card for TK students. I looked in CD and did not find any. I can only find standards for KN. Is that what everyone is using if you have a TK report card? We used Infinite Campus as our SIS.
Didn't see anybody responding to you, Cami. That you might have a better response on the CSIS listserv. You can cast that to a wider net.
Okay. Rebecca, I see your Q2. What are we doing for time? We still got 15 minutes, so we're doing good. Q1 from Ethan. For information, I believe I have observed the 550 mistriggering in scenarios that do not match any of the listed known issues. Oh, that would surprise me. For that CDD, ergo, student TBD before census, but EL after census, a lip starting on TBD, which is normally fine. I have a feeling you're going to need to disable it in order for LAs to certify by 12/16. Also, for what it's worth, it's been challenging to mass close prior year's lips. Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Although I'm not sure it's true, Ethan, that there are specific codes that you have to be EL to use. And if the student is TBD and you put them in one of those programs that are specifically for EL, I think that's what it's supposed to trigger on. That was the intent. And maybe it didn't do it in the past, but that is what the trigger language is for the 550. I think it's program 301, 303, 305. There's another one I think out there, and you need to be have a status of EL in order to use those programs.
So Ethan, you might want to open a ticket and put in some SSID examples of what you think might not be triggering correctly, and we will investigate.
I think he has a ticket already, and I responded. So I suggested he try one of them to see if it indeed clears, because who knows, 550 might be doing something else than what we expected.
It's been my favorite one this last week.
Started out slow, but it's coming in, Gary.
Gosh. Tasha, it looks like Natasha is writing Beatrice, so that's not a question, I think. Larnie, I see your Q2. Sandra asks, where can I access the CALPADS Q&A recordings? If you go to the videos on YouTube,
Our homepage.
on our homepage on CSIS's website, and there they are in all their glory.
And we're a little bit behind, but that's because we're posting the reporting and certification training. So what I'm doing is I'm posting it, and I'm going to update the table of contents as time allows, but I'm posting them as soon as I can get them in there for you guys.
It's funny, on the 6 here that are listed, mine's the only one that have pictures of me. How's that happening? Marshall?
We're also missing one, Marshall, between.
And that's what I was talking about. I'm posting them as I come, because I'm doing the data population and the RC and all the other. While that's rendering, I'm posting the Q&A, and then as it renders again, I'll update the table of contents. So it's a working process. It's going to be there. I'm going to try to get it there as fast as I possibly can for you guys.
Okay, I just thought maybe you missed the second on accident.
Thanks, Marshall. Okay. Angelus, question 1, can a student have 2 LIP programs? Yes. question one from Samantha. I have a student who had a home language error and was corrected to English only, and an English language acquisition line is entered with an effective date of 2/24/21 for the 2021 year. The EL line is dated effective 9/3/2020, and the TBD line was effective 7/26/2020. I'm getting the 550 fatal invalid. How would I fix this? Martha, this one looks like your error.
Yeah,
It's out of sequence.
6414.
Yeah. So you can't fix it. We're working on it on this end, and it will go away once we resolve the error. Amy, I see your Q2 and your Q3. Okay. Mary Masters, question one, regarding any sections with a course coded with a state course code in the CTE categories for regular sections, not independent study, if the teacher is not credentialed for the CTE sector and we don't code the section as having a highly qualified teacher, will this generate a misassignment by CalSAS? I know Perkins needs the high Q teacher, and will it count for student CTE participant? The student would count as a CTE participant if the course is a CTE course. I'm not sure about the misassignment by CalSAS part, though. Brandy usually answers that. So we may need a ticket to send to Brandy.
There's also that website that CalSAS has where you can put in the state course code and it'll tell you exactly which credential CTC is expecting. I can post it on the chat.
Oh, thanks, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot. That's right. There is that website. Question one from Terry. Anomalies percentage. I have 0 mids and 0 ERDs and 2 CCEs for students enrolled on census days. So the ERDs aren't part of the formula for that percentage, but the CCEs and mids are. I would expect my anomaly percentage to be almost 0, but it is 0.13. Well, it's pretty close to 0. I have a few CCEs for students enrolled in November. Should they be reflected in the fall once anomaly percentage? If they're after census day, I wouldn't think they should. But you're well under the 2% for fall 1 certification.
Yeah, I wouldn't stress it.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're in good shape.
Nathan has Q1. I apologize. I came in late. When is the issue with the Sprig data? SPRG, I don't know why I said Sprig. Data being fixed. I can't upload and exits or updates files without getting hundreds of errors. Yeah. That one's a tricky one. Some cases you wait a day. If you've deleted any SPRG records, it seems like there's a process that kind of hangs around for something's going on. But if you try and upload the records the next day, they go in with no problems at all. So that may be the issue. If you've tried today and just try again tomorrow and see if it works. If not, put in a ticket so we can look up what the errors for specific students are to see why you might be getting the errors. Q1 from Ray. We have a Cert 67 for a student currently enrolled in our private school group missing an EL status. Is there a way to exempt the student meeting an ELA status, or will we need to collect a home language survey even though they are attending a private school outside of our district?
If the student if the student is in a private school, then they would have the 50 enrollment status, and so they wouldn't be triggering the Cert 67.
Right. So if you're getting the 67 and they are a 50, then there might be a problem. If you have them enrolled as a 10,
and that's the incorrect code for the private school.
That's the wrong. Yeah.
And if you mean private because it's a NPS school, NPS schools have a 10 enrollment status, and the EL status is required.
Thanks, Nate. So a couple of things to think about there, Ray. Okay, Q1 from Elsa. And that's cute because the picture that you have is Elsa. Please clarify regarding data discrepancy errors. Does that mean there are cert errors? I'm not seeing any. I think all the errors are activated now.
Yeah, I
Yes.
see where the confusion is though. So your CDDs, your certification data discrepancies, are on the certification interface under certification details. Paul is navigating there now. So all but one are implemented now. So if you have any, they would be there. What's missing is they're not showing up in the 1.0 certification error report just yet. So that's what we're waiting on. So for a district your size, Elsa, you know, it's probably a lot more convenient for you to be able to download those in a report. And right now you won't be able to do that, but you can at least see them on your screen.
Yep. All those 550s. Okay, question 1 from Eric. We know that we have lots of issues with the reports and errors for fall 1. My question is, how long do I have to wait after eating my turkey before going swimming? Should I cut? Oh, this is a good question. Should I cut down on the cranberry sauce or double down and have a feast? Do as in the previous years, do holiday calories count? Happy Thanksgiving. Thanks, Eric.
Love it, Eric. That makes us think too hard, though.
Yeah.
Definitely double down and have a feast.
Yes.
And calories don't count. That's
That's
fine.
right.
Totally
Not
agree
for
with that,
Thanksgiving.
Alex. Totally agree with that.
Amy, I see your Q4, and we'll get to it, I think, because we're almost at the bottom, and we get back to the Q2s and 3s and stuff. Ethan, Q1 response. In the past, 305 LIPS could overlap TBD records. I'll find some examples for you. Okay. Rosa, I see your
Ethan, it may not matter because they rewrote the trigger and it may have a new rules, but we can double check. Add that to our list to talk to CDE about. Thank you, though, Ethan, for pursuing it.
Rosa has a Q2 on the 550. We have a couple Q2s on the 550. And Terry, Q1, I have currently 294 550 errors as well as some cert errors. It would be a time saver to be able to see all the cert errors on one report, and we realize that. We understand. I think it's more of a statement than a question. Okay, last Q1, and then we're going to go back and do the Q2s. Why would I have missing students from my 1.0 report student who are sped? They have records in CALPADS, but do not show on my report. Were they enrolled before census, on or before census day? We may need a ticker for that one and some SSIDs so we can check. Okay, back to the Q2s. The first Q2 was from Wendy at 3:04. Can parents answer the survey for post-secondary CTE? I don't know who answers those questions.
What was the question again?
Can parents answer the survey for post-secondary CTE?
Somewhere it's documented about doing that survey. Is Paula gone?
Yeah, no, I'm here. I mean, you know, if you send out, I mean, if you send it out an actual survey, you know, you don't really know who filled it out. You know, I think it's a local decision if they're willing to take the whatever the parent says the kid is doing. Often I know that a lot of that follow-up isn't done by a hard copy survey anymore. You know, it's the CTE people who know the students, and they use a lot of different other alternative methods to get that data. But, you know, ultimately, I guess we can ask our program office, but I don't think there's any, you know, if a parent responds and knows what their kid is doing, then.
Although I thought we had a flash that gave guidance about, you know, the template of that questionnaire, and then also the expectation of who was supposed to respond.
I don't think we ever
Went
responded
that
to the
deep.
question if a parent responded for the child. I don't think we ever.
And she has a follow-on question, similar though, asking about Perkins creating a report for post-secondary. Can Perkins create a report for it?
I guess I don't know what that means when Perkins.
Yeah.
Perkins came.
Yeah, who's Perkins? Your Perkins? The Department of Ed Perkins? Because isn't that a federal thing?
Well, it's a Perkins reporting requirement that we, the LEA survey their students 6 months after to see what they're doing. So we're only doing this to fulfill a federal reporting requirement under Perkins.
Okay. Next Q2 is at 321 from Rebecca. Regarding my workaround for the 550, what do we do if the student is currently EL for some weird reason they have a previous EO and has an open lip? Okay, so that's the 6414 issue. So unfortunately, Rebecca, nothing you can do until we fix that problem. Q2 from Larney. Follow up to the reclassification of EL before census day versus the end of the year. Since there are 4 steps to do in reclassifying an EL: test, parent meeting, teacher assessment, and basic skill. This process does take some time and can be challenging to accomplish before census day. It is my understanding that we reclassified when we've completed the 4 steps. So there is a possibility that a student is an EL during the first fall 1 deadline and then RFF by the time we recertify the amendment. I'm told that this is going to cause us to pay back the funding received from P1 first deadline because our P2 has a lower EL due to reclassification. Is this true?
Well, you don't pay. I mean, P1, the data that is approved by the Cert deadline on December 16th is our SFSD, our fiscal folks, basically do a projection for funding. And then that projection is revised based on what's finally determined from the final certification deadline as part of your P2. So if you had a higher EL count or higher LCFF count for P1 and it goes down, then yeah, it would cause your P2 to be less. That's true.
But it's almost like you're backdating the EL to RFEP, because on census day, this is what their status was. If later, come, I don't know, January 1st, you finally got around to RFEPing, the RFEP would be as of January. And so that shouldn't impact your census day counts at all. So
yeah, no, that's true. I'm sorry. I was just assuming that they.
Well, it could be though that they backdated it, right? That they wanted to RFEP the kid. They didn't get around to doing it. When they finally did, they did it as of, someday in September, let's say. Then definitely, yeah, you changed your EL counts as of census day. So it's going to be adjusted accordingly. Hopefully we're understanding you correctly, Larney. Hopefully we answered your questions.
Okay, Q2 from Amy. Local determination or what recommended on disciplinary data, suspension history record in the CUME files or not? I don't understand this question.
I think some LEAs don't put disciplinary data in the CUME folder. And Paula, I don't know, is there something in EDCO that you have to inform the next district of certain kinds of disciplinary action? Maybe that's what she's asking here. I don't know. I'm reading into it, Amy. I don't know if we're.
No, I think there is some requirement, but.
Certain kinds of disciplinary has to be in the CUME folder, but other stuff maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, if you really want that question answered, I would submit a ticket so we can really get our subject matter folks to provide
weigh in.
Yeah.
Sounds good. And Amy has a Q3. Does CALPADS require LEAs to enter brand new staff assignment records each academic year? Can we leave it open and ongoing if the staff member's assignment has no change? I seem to be getting SAS fatals on submissions relating to admin, pupil services, teachers with FTE broken between two schools, same function job. Staff assignment records do have to be entered new each year. A Q4 from Amy. Amy's our winner for today. Our charter school as a teacher with gen ed credentials teaching self-contained classes for sixth graders with no departmentalized credentials for life skills, PE, math, science, etc. Is that a SAS flag? I'm not sure.
So they have a credential for self-contained, which means, you know, not departmentalized.
Right.
And so then you're saying, but they have departmentalized courses like life skills, PE, math, and science. I think that would be a SAS flag, but it's a charter school. So then the rules change a little bit. Amy, we need a ticket.
Okay. Question 2 from Maurizio. On the 550, is there a way to download a list of students that are triggering the error? I have 475 fatal errors. Unfortunately, the 1.0 error report, if we get that fixed, you'll be able to use that. You could download the programs, but you wouldn't know which students have the errors without exhaustive analysis, maybe with Excel in comparison with the extract. But I think I would wait for the 1.0 error report. Hopefully
Or any student that's an RFEP and still has a
that's a good point.
SPRG 550.
Yeah, check for your filter it for RFEPs, and then it probably wouldn't take that long.
Or wait for us.
That's it. We're done. It's 4:05. Thanks everybody for helping out. And we going to be next Wednesday is.
We will be here. Yes.
We will be here. So
All
we
right.
will see you next Wednesday if you are working next Wednesday.